The alien queen had prepared for war, but she was not prepared to hear her daughter's voice. Mother. That single word shattered an empire. For 17 years, Queen Serelith of the Vyrix Dominion believed her only child had died in a human attack. The stars themselves had witnessed the explosion. The royal cruiser had vanished in fire. No escape signals. No survivors. And now, her daughter stood alive. Alive. And holding the hand of a human. The great hall of the Vyrix flagship trembled, not from weapons, but from silence. Thousands of alien nobles watched in disbelief as Princess Kylera stepped forward beside a human male wearing a damaged exploration suit. Queen Serelith's silver eyes widened. "You are dead," she whispered. Kylera shook her head gently. "No, Mother. I was saved." The word saved echoed like an insult. The Vyrix Empire did not get saved by humans. They conquered humans. They studied them. They underestimated them. But they never needed them. Until now. The human beside Kylera stood calm. He was not tall by alien standards. Not armored. Not armed. But his eyes were steady. "My name is Commander Elias Kane," he said clearly. "And your daughter is alive because of humanity." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Queen Serelith rose slowly from her throne of black crystal. Energy shimmered around her form. A ruler of 1,000 systems did not show weakness. But her voice trembled. "How?" 17 years earlier, the Vyrix cruiser had been ambushed during a border conflict with Earth's outer colonies. The explosion was catastrophic. The royal ship broke apart in orbit of a dying moon. Princess Kylera's escape pod launched seconds before impact. Damaged. Burning. Falling. It crashed on that moon. Alone. Injured. Cut off from her empire. And humans found her first. A small human science vessel detected the crash. They were not soldiers. Not conquerors. Just researchers mapping unstable gravitational waves. Commander Elias Kane led the rescue team. When they opened the shattered pod, they expected an enemy. Instead, they found a dying young alien girl. She tried to fight them. Even wounded. Even afraid. That was the first thing Elias respected. "She's just a kid," one human medic said. "She's the enemy," another warned. Elias made a decision that would change galaxies. "She's a survivor," he replied. They saved her. Not for politics. Not for leverage. Not for war. They saved her because that is what humans do. Back in the present, Queen Serelith listened in frozen disbelief as her daughter spoke. "They healed me," Kylera said softly. "They could have turned me into a prisoner. A weapon. A symbol." She squeezed Elias's hand. "They treated me like family." Murmurs filled the chamber. Family? Humans? Impossible. Queen Serelith's claws tightened against her throne. "You stayed with them?" she asked slowly. "Yes." "You did not return." Kylera lifted her chin. "Because I learned something." The room felt smaller. "Humans are weak alone," she continued. "Their bodies are fragile. Their ships are smaller. Their weapons are less advanced." Alien nobles nodded. "Yes. Correct. Logical. But together," Kylera said, voice growing stronger, "they are unstoppable." Silence again. Elias stepped forward. "When we found her, she hated us," he admitted. "She tried to sabotage our ship twice." A few alien guards almost smiled. Kylera glared slightly. "You were very annoying." Elias shrugged. "We kept fixing the sabotage." The court watched carefully now. This was not fear. This was something else. Confidence. Not arrogance. Not submission. Something balanced. "We are not here to beg," Elias continued calmly. "And we are not here to threaten." Queen Serelith narrowed her eyes. "Then why are you here, human?" Kylera answered before he could. "Because the Drathari are coming." Every alien in the hall stiffened. The Drathari were not conquerors. They were extinction. Machines fused with living matter. A species that erased civilizations and harvested planets. Even the Virex Empire feared them. They have already destroyed 3 outer systems, Kylera said. And humanity is next. Let them fall, one noble hissed. Elias did not react. We thought you would say that, he said calmly. The Queen's gaze sharpened. Then why warn us? Because after us, Elias replied, they come for you. A holographic projection activated from his wrist device. Star maps lit the chamber. Red lines traced Drathri expansion. The path was clear. Direct. Toward Virex space. Murmurs turned into uneasy silence. Kylera stepped forward again. Humans have been fighting them for 2 years. Gasps. 2 years? Still alive? How? Demanded a general. Elias smiled slightly. We adapt. The hologram shifted. Human ships appeared, damaged, patched, redesigned. When the Drathri disabled our engines, we switched to gravity slingshot drives. When they blocked communications, we used old radio frequencies they couldn't detect. When they boarded our ships, we flooded corridors and used pressure traps. Alien officers leaned closer. Primitive. Creative. Unpredictable. Human. Kylera's voice softened. They do not win by being stronger. They win by refusing to quit. Queen Serelith stared at her daughter. This was not the sheltered princess she lost. This was something forged. Sharpened. Balanced between alien precision and human improvisation. You love him, the Queen said quietly. It was not a question. Kylera did not hesitate. Yes. The word echoed. An alien princess. In love. With a human. For a moment, ancient laws, traditions, and pride battled inside the Queen's mind. Then something unexpected happened. She remembered holding her daughter for the first time. Tiny. Fragile. Alive. And she realized something terrifying. If humans had not chosen mercy, her daughter would truly be dead. Queen Serelith turned slowly to face Elias. If you lie, she said calmly, I will personally end your species. Elias nodded. Fair. A few alien guards blinked in confusion. He did not flinch. He did not bow. He simply stood. Not defiant. Not submissive. Equal. And for the first time in centuries, Queen Serelith saw something she had not expected. Humans were not prey. They were not rivals. They were not even allies. They were catalysts. Change followed them like gravity. And the Drathri were coming. The Queen made her decision. Prepare the War Council. Gasps filled the chamber. You would fight beside them, a noble demanded. Queen Serelith's silver eyes glowed. No. She looked at her daughter. We will fight with them. And somewhere in deep space, the Drathri fleets continued their silent advance. They had crushed empires older than Earth. They had erased civilizations stronger than humanity. But they had never faced something like this. An alien empire united by pride. And humans united by stubborn hope. The galaxy was about to learn a dangerous lesson. Never corner a species that survives by inventing new ways to win. The Drathri did not send warnings. They sent silence. 3 days after the War Council ended, the outer Virex listening posts went dark. No distress calls. No battle signals. Just sudden absence. Queen Serelith stood inside the Grand Strategy Chamber, staring at the holographic map. Red dots blinked out one by one. They move faster than predicted, a Virex admiral said. Elias Kane stood beside Princess Kylera, studying the pattern carefully. His brow tightened. No, he said quietly. They're not moving faster. The Queen turned toward him. They're learning. The chamber grew still. The Drathri had always adapted, but slowly, predictably. Now their movements were precise. Focused. They're targeting communication hubs first, Elias continued. Blinding you before the strike. Kylera nodded. That's what they tried with Earth. A Virex general looked offended. We are not Earth. Elias did not argue. No, he agreed calmly. You're not. That answer confused them more than an insult would have. The first joint fleet assembled near the edge of Virex territory. Massive alien warships hovered beside smaller human cruisers patched with visible weld lines and reinforced plating. The contrast was clear. Virex ships were beautiful, sleek, glowing, elegant like blades made of light. Human ships looked like they had survived a dozen bad decisions. Because they had. Queen Serelith observed from her command vessel as human engineers moved quickly between docking bays. They are modifying their weapons again, a Virex officer noted. Yes, Kylera replied. They just upgraded last week. Elias gave a small smile. That was last week. On a nearby human ship, technicians were attaching something unusual to the hull. Cargo containers. Strapped directly onto warships. A Virex commander blinked. Is that storage? Elias shook his head. Improvised kinetic scatterpods. The commander stared. That is not a real term. It is now. The Drathri arrived without drama. Black shapes tore open space itself, folding reality like paper. Their ships were not elegant. They were not beautiful. They were wrong. Twisted metal fused with organic tissue. Pulsing veins of energy crawling across surfaces. The first volley came instantly. Green beams cut through space, slicing a Virex cruiser in half before shields fully activated. The fleet responded. Virex precision cannons fired in perfect formation. Human ships scattered in unpredictable arcs. Maintain formation, a Virex admiral ordered. Break formation. Elias shouted at the same time. Confusion filled the comms. Then Kylera's voice cut through. Trust him. For one dangerous second, Queen Serelith hesitated. Then she gave the command. Adaptive Maneuver Delta. Virex ships broke their sacred geometric pattern for the first time in their history. They moved like humans. Chaotic. Unpredictable. Alive. The Drathri targeting systems faltered. Human ships accelerated straight toward the enemy. That is suicide, a Virex officer whispered. Elias watched calmly. Not if you're counting on it. At the last second, the human ships ejected the cargo containers. Hundreds of them. They drifted directly into the path of Drathri energy beams. The beams struck. And detonated. The containers had been filled with volatile mining compounds and reflective plating. Each explosion multiplied the energy blast back toward its source. Drathri ships staggered as their own weapons ripped into their armor. Shock rippled through the alien fleet. They used our attack against us, a Virex commander said in disbelief. Kylera smiled slightly. Humans hate wasting resources. But the Drathri adapted quickly. Their ships shifted formation. Organic armor thickened. New weapons extended from their hulls like claws. Boarding spikes launched toward the nearest vessels. One pierced a human cruiser. Alarms screamed. Inside the damaged ship, gravity fluctuated wildly. Drathri drones poured through the breach, half machine, half living weapon. The human crew did not panic. Seal Corridor B. Vent oxygen in sections 3 through 6. Activate fallback traps. A Virex observer watching through shared battle feed felt confusion. The humans were venting their own air. They were flooding compartments. They were shutting down lights. Why sabotage themselves? Then the traps triggered. Magnetic pulses slammed through corridors. Emergency foam hardened instantly, trapping Drathri units mid-step. Electrified wiring dropped from ceilings. Improvised. Messy. Effective. Within minutes, the boarding force was neutralized. The human captain wiped sweat from his brow. Patch it and get us back out there. The Virex observer whispered softly. They turned their own ship into a weapon. Kylera answered. Humans turn everything into a weapon. Outside, the battle intensified. Despite heavy losses, the combined fleet held. Then something changed. A massive Drathri command ship emerged from folded space. Larger than anything recorded before. Its presence alone disrupted sensors. Energy gathered along its core. Elias stared at the readings. That's not a standard weapon. Queen Serelitha's voice remained steady. What is it? He swallowed. It's a star killer. Silence. The weapon fired. Not at a ship. At the nearest sun. The star's surface rippled violently. Solar flares erupted. If it destabilized fully, the entire system would die. The Drathri were not here to win a battle. They were here to erase resistance completely. Queen Serelitha's eyes hardened. All ships target the command vessel. They fired everything. It barely slowed the massive structure. Shields held. Armor regenerated. Despair crept into the fleet. Kylera looked at Elias. You're thinking. He nodded slowly. I am. He opened a channel to all human ships. Execute Protocol Hammerfall. Several Virex officers demanded explanation. Elias didn't have time. Human ships broke away from battle and accelerated, not toward the enemy, but toward the unstable star. What are they doing? A Virex admiral shouted. Queen Serelith did not interrupt. She watched. Human ships dove dangerously close to the star's corona. Heat warnings screamed. Hull temperatures spiked. Then they began releasing something. Thousands of small reflective satellites. Mining mirrors. Emergency solar sails. Anything that could bend light. They're redirecting the flare, Kylera realized. The Starkiller weapon had triggered a massive solar eruption. Humans were reshaping it. Using physics. Using desperation. Using courage. The mirrors aligned in chaotic precision. Not perfect. But enough. The next solar flare exploded outward. Straight toward the Drathri command ship. The massive vessel tried to shield. Too late. The flare struck with the force of a newborn sun. Its organic armor burned. Its systems overloaded. For the first time, Drathri ships hesitated. Then the command vessel cracked apart. The remaining fleet faltered. Retreat signals pulsed through their network. And then, they fled. Silence returned to space. Broken ships drifted. Debris shimmered in starlight. The sun stabilized slowly. Across the fleet, disbelief turned into something else. Victory. Not clean. Not easy. But earned. Queen Serelith exhaled slowly. They saved the system. Kylera looked at Elias. He was exhausted. Burned. Hands shaking slightly. You redirected a star, the Queen said quietly. Elias gave a tired smile. We redirected a problem. For the first time, Queen Serelith bowed her head slightly, not as a ruler, but as a mother. Humanity fights like chaos, she said. Elias nodded. Chaos is just creativity without permission. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, the Drathri began recalculating. Because for the first time in their long history, their invasion had failed. Not because they were weaker, but because humans refused to think in straight lines. The Drathri retreated, but they did not flee in fear. They fled to improve. That was what made them terrifying. 2 weeks after the battle, human and Virex ships gathered above a quiet, icy moon to repair, regroup, and plan. The victory should have felt like hope. Instead, it felt like a warning. Queen Serelith stood in the command deck of her flagship, watching scientists from both species argue over holograms and damaged Drathri fragments. They will return, Kylera said softly. Elias nodded. Yes. A Virex admiral spoke sharply. We destroyed their largest vessel. We pushed them back. That is enough. Elias looked him straight in the eye. No, he said. That was their scouting force. Silence hit like a physical blow. Kylera's voice stayed calm, but her hands tightened into fists. He's right. Earth learned that the hard way. The Queen's gaze sharpened. Then tell me what they do next. Elias moved to the hologram and zoomed out. Far beyond the Virex border, new red signals appeared, faint at first, then multiplying. They're not coming from one direction anymore, he said. They're surrounding the region. A Virex officer hissed. That is impossible. The void storms out there tear ships apart. Elias tapped the screen. Not if you stop using ships. Everyone paused. Kylira's eyes widened. You think they found a new travel method? Elias nodded slowly. They're using living gates. Organic jump beacons. They build them inside asteroids, then grow them like tumors across space. The room went cold. Queen Serelitha's voice dropped. How much time? Elias didn't answer immediately. His silence was the answer. Kylira stepped closer to the hologram. They're not preparing an invasion, she whispered. They're preparing a cage. The next Drathri wave arrived at the edge of the system like night pouring in. Not one fleet. 3. They came through organic gates, floating structures made of twisted bone metal, pulsing with energy. The combined Alliance fleet launched to meet them. But the Drathri did not rush. They released something else first. A fog. A swarm of microscopic machines that spread through space like glittering dust. Human sensors screamed. Virex scanners failed. Ships began to lose control of guidance systems. Artificial intelligence corrupted instantly. They're killing our tech, a human engineer shouted over comms. Elias's jaw tightened. They learned we rely on systems. The fog reached the Virex flagship. Lights flickered. Holograms died. Doors froze. A Virex officer panicked. We're blind. Elias grabbed a manual console. Old-fashioned. Physical levers and switches. The Virex stared like it was ancient nonsense. Elias flipped the switches anyway. We still have eyes, he said. We still have hands. Kylira turned to her mother. Let the humans lead the maneuvering. They train without full automation. Queen Serelith hesitated for half a heartbeat. Then she did something no Virex queen had ever done. She trusted. Human command has tactical control, she ordered. A Virex general looked furious. Your radiance. Enough, Serelith snapped. Her voice was steel. The general went silent. The fleet shifted under human direction. Ships moved using manual calculations, visual spacing, and simple signal lights. Primitive. Reliable. The Drathri fog could not hack a flashlight. Still, the enemy advanced. Drathri warships launched impactors, living torpedoes that burrowed into hulls and grew into shredding vines of metal. Human ships burned them with flamers. Virex ships used focused plasma. The Alliance held the line, until the gates started multiplying. More portals opened behind them. Then ahead of them. A cage. Just as Kylira feared. Queen Serelith realized the truth too late. They are surrounding the star, she said, voice low. Elias stared at the energy readings. They're building a ring. Kylira's breath caught. A containment ring around the sun. The Drathri were preparing to compress the system's star. To turn it unstable. To create a controlled stellar collapse. A weapon made from a star. A bomb that could wipe out everything within light years. The Virex admiral whispered, almost numb, they will sacrifice the system to erase us. Elias's hands moved quickly across a paper notepad. Paper. A Virex officer stared. What is that? Elias answered without looking up. Something they can't hack. Kylira leaned close. What are you doing? Elias drew circles and arrows. Numbers. Timings. Then he looked up at the Queen. I need permission to do something insane, he said. Queen Serelith didn't blink. You already did. Elias swallowed. We can't destroy all gates. Not in time. But we can overload their network. Kylira's eyes narrowed. Like a chain reaction. Yes, Elias said. If we force one gate to collapse violently, it'll spike their linked structure. The energy rebound could ripple through the whole ring. The Virex admiral shook his head. That would require impossible precision. Elias nodded once. That's why humans will do it the human way. He turned to Kylera. We'll fake it. The plan was simple in concept and terrifying in practice. Humans would take a battered cargo ship, pack it with stolen Drathri biomaterial, attach a compact gravitational shear device, and fly it directly into the heart of the gate network. Not to fight. To trick the gates into accepting it as part of their own system. Then, detonate the shear device and tear one gate apart from the inside. It might work. It might also kill everyone nearby. Queen Serelith stared at Elias. Who pilots this ship? She asked. Elias didn't answer. Kylera's face changed instantly. No. Elias met her eyes. Yes. Kylera stepped toward him, voice shaking. You can't do this. He took her hands gently. I can, he said softly. And I will. Queen Serelith watched them, her daughter, and the human who had brought her back. For the first time, the Queen's voice sounded like a mother, not a ruler. Why would you sacrifice yourself for a war that is not yours? Elias looked at her. It is ours, he said. That's the point. He turned back to Kylera. You taught me something, he whispered. That the galaxy doesn't change because the strong decide to be kind. Kylera's eyes filled with tears. It changes because the stubborn refuse to accept evil as normal. He smiled faintly. Humans are stubborn. Kylera pressed her forehead to his. Then let me go with you. Elias shook his head slowly. You're the bridge. Between them and us. If you die, the Alliance dies next. Kylera trembled, trying not to break. I hate this. Elias squeezed her hands once more. I know. Then he stepped away. Queen Serelith stood taller, pain hidden behind royal control. Human, she said quietly. Elias turned. If you succeed, she said, you will be remembered as Virex. Elias gave a small nod. That's an honor. Kylera whispered, come back. Elias didn't promise. He only smiled again. Because humans don't promise the impossible. They do it. The cargo ship launched into the chaos like a tiny spark heading into a storm. Manual controls. No AI. No advanced targeting. Just a human pilot, a fragile ship, and a plan that depended on deception. Drathri fog swirled around the vessel. The gates pulsed like living throats opening and closing. Elias pushed the ship closer. Alarm after alarm screamed. Radiation climbed. Hull integrity dropped. Then the gate reacted. It recognized the cargo ship's stolen biosignature. The gate opened. Elias flew inside. For a moment, the world turned inside out. Then he was in the core of the network. He saw them. Organic strands connecting gates like nerves. A living web. He whispered into the comms. Now. Human ships and Virex vessels fired a concentrated burst into the gate's outer shell, just enough to destabilize it. Inside, Elias armed the gravitational shear device. He took one deep breath. And he laughed softly. Because this was the most human thing imaginable. When faced with extinction, they chose a trick. He pressed the trigger. The shear device activated. Space twisted. The gate screamed. A silent scream, felt, not heard. Energy surged backward through the network like lightning. One gate collapsed. Then another. Then another. The ring around the star shattered in a chain reaction, ripping open like broken teeth. The Drathri fleets froze, systems failing as their portals died. Without gates, they were stranded. Without their network, their coordination broke. The Alliance fleet attacked with everything. Virex precision. Human improvisation. Together. Drathri ships fell one by one. The fog weakened. The cage dissolved. The star stabilized. The galaxy survived. When the battle ended, Queen Serelith stood in the quiet command deck, staring at the empty space where the cargo ship had vanished. Kylera stood beside her, silent, tears on her face. No body. No signal. Only proof. Proof that humanity had once again done the impossible. Not with strength. Not with superior technology. But with creativity and courage. Queen Serelith spoke at last. "They will tell stories about him," she whispered. Kylera nodded, voice barely audible. "And they'll tell stories about us," she said. "Because we chose to stand with humans." The Queen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, an act of comfort no noble had ever seen from her. "Your love changed the Empire," Serelith said softly. Kylera looked up at the stars. "And his sacrifice changed the galaxy." Far away, in the dark beyond known space, survivors would later report something strange. A signal. A weak human radio pulse. 3 simple words. Crackling through the void. Not a goodbye. Not a speech. Just a human refusing to be finished. Still, here, smiling. And for the first time, even the oldest alien civilizations understood the truth. You can defeat human weapons. You can hack human machines. But you cannot predict human imagination. And you cannot kill a species that treats impossible odds like a personal challenge.